welcome to another episode of Kraken's Garage. Today we're going to change the oil in the TNT 135. I'm going to show you how to do it, hopefully make it simple for all those just doing their first oil change on their first bike. Let's get to it. First thing you want to do is take your bike out for a good 10-mile ride to get the oil nice and hot. What you want is the oil cooler to open up the valve, temperature control valve, so that it'll drain and we'll get that bad oil out of there as well. First, we're going to remove the oil fill plug right here. That allows it to breathe, so when we open up the drain bolt on the other side, the oil will free flow right out. Check the O-ring for any damage. If so, then replace. This one looks fine. Okay, you're going to need a 14mm socket. Be sure you use latex gloves, surgical gloves. You can buy them in bulk pretty much at any big box store or Costco. I'll link some in the description if Amazon has any. I'll have to take a look. Make sure your oil pan is right below it, and be mindful the oil coming out of here is going to be smoking hot. This Benelli TnT 135 doesn't carry much oil, so all you need is a very small oil pan. This one I actually bought for my Vespas, and it works really well for the Benelli as well. I'll put a link at Scooter West where I bought this one. And you can take a look at the screen. I see a little bit of debris right there, but not too bad. So I think we're looking pretty good. And we're gonna let that drain out for a bit and then clean this screen up. You can pull the screen out, and that way you can shoot up inside with some brake cleaner, carb cleaner, something like that, and get this nice and clean. So be sure you do that. We're going to reinstall the drain plug with the screen reinserted after we cleaned it, and we're going to tighten it to 22 Newton meters using our torque wrench. Guys, if you don't have a torque wrench, they're not that expensive. They're super critical important to maintaining your bike. Please invest the money and get one if you can. I'll link the one that I'm using from Amazon, which is a fairly inexpensive one, down below. And let's get her buttoned up. Now we're going to replace the actual oil filter, and you should do this probably every oil change, so don't skimp. Takes an 8mm socket. And you can see here it's pretty filthy. Now if you notice, there's no rubber seal on either side. So that's something to take note. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Now when we take this cover off, there's a couple things notable. There's a string, make sure you don't lose it and it spring down and fall on the ground. You definitely need it to keep the pressure on the oil filter up against the engine case guard. Take a look. If you see there's an arrow right here, very important that you make sure that's pointing up when you reinstall it. So again, the arrow pointing up when you reinstall it, just like that. Now in this particular case, the oil filter that I'm using is a K&N 112. You can see this one has a rubber seal as compared to the old one that does not. Okay, make sure there's some oil on that rubber seal, and you're going to have to forcefully push that devil, just kind of rotating it until she seats on there. And that's a good tight fit right there. Then we're going to take our spring, make sure the arrow is pointed up. Set that spring right on the oil filter, and get all three of the 8mm screws started. Okay, I just loosely tightened it with the impact wrench. I don't want to over tighten these, and we're going to torque these to spec. Okay, we're going to tighten these to 12 Newton meters. This particular case I'm using Motul 10W50. It's a little thicker oil because inherently on this particular bike the valves are a little bit louder, and when I do a tutorial on how to do the valve adjustments, I'll be able to demonstrate why they're so much louder. There's nothing wrong with the bike. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Now the manual says it takes 1 liter capacity oil and 1.1 liters for engine is disassembled completely. That's a broad statement. If we're removing the oil filter and draining the oil out of the oil cooler, then it's going to take 1.1 liters. So that's what we're going to work with. On a side note, one thing I like about the Motul oil bottles is they have a collapsible spout that spits out, makes it super easy. This particular funnel is a 4-piece set I bought at Harbor Freight. They also sell them on Amazon as well. They're cheap as beans. I want to say I paid $1 or $2 for the whole set. Hopefully I'll post a link to what I'm using in this video as well down below, should you need an inexpensive set of funnels. Okay, we're gonna let that drain a second, and you can't quite see, I'll show you in a minute, but the oil window to check the level is almost full, and that's because it hasn't cycled up into the filter in the oil cooler. We've temporarily reinstalled the oil filler cap up here. Let's zoom in and take a look at that sight glass. Now here you can see it's above the middle where it should be. It's a little too much oil. So let's fire the bike up and then see if she goes down some. Okay, you can see it's now down below the add oil level. That's because it got sucked back up into the oil filter and also the oil cooler. So let's add another 0.1 of a liter of oil. Okay, I added some more oil and now it's smack dab in the middle. We're gonna pull our funnel and install our oil filler cap real quick. I'm gonna put away some tools and take her down off the lift and then go put a mile on her and we're gonna check the level again. Get that on there good and tight. On a side note, when you go to put away your torque wrench, never leave it under load, meaning set to a specific torque setting. Take it all the way back down to 0 so that spring mechanism inside is in the relax mode. You'll get many more years use out of your torque wrench for future use. I went out and took it for a couple mile ride and checked the levels and she's fine. It's very important that when you take it for future rides, just double check that oil level each and every ride to make sure everything's cool for the next till the next service. You have 2 trip meters on your dash. Make sure you reset the second one to 0. The first one I use to kind of track how many miles per tank of gas. The second one I use tells me exactly when the last service was done and how many miles were on it since that service. Critical information there for keeping track and maintaining your Benelli TnT 135 for longevity. Last thing I should mention is I replaced every single gasket, O-ring gasket on every one of the items, just to be sure. Again, they're cheap as beans, so reusing the old ones, it may compromise and you may have issues going down the road. Just bear in mind, it's a thumper, it's a 1 lunger, all 135 cc's hammering away down the road at 9,000 RPM. It's working double duty to move this big person down the road. Take care of your bike and we'll take care of you. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. If you want to see more in the future, hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching.
I love y'all. Stay safe. Peace.